Hello students, so now for chapter 1, the key structure, we're going to learn about simple past tense and when to use the connective when. So let's look at the sample sentence. When I was 5 months old, I crawled for the first time. So because it is talking about a past event, that's why you use was instead of am. When I was 5 months old instead of when I am 5 months old. I crawled for the first time. So crawled, we add ed because it is past tense. And we can also swap the first half and the second half of this sentence. You can say, I crawled for the first time when I was 5 months old. Notice that if you write it this way, then we don't need the comma anymore because the word when already have connecting the first and the second sentence. Just like because, but if you put when in the front, make sure you put a comma over here before you write the second half of the sentence. Okay, so let's look at some sample sentence. When Tim was 30 months old, he walked for the first time. He was not scared. So the second sentence is still describing the feeling over the incidents of the first sentence. That's why we keep using past tense. He was not scared. And this next sentence, his brother and sister were surprised. Here, why do we use were? Because his brother and sister. If you replace it with a pronoun, you use they to replace it. Alright, for present tense, we say they are surprised. And the past tense of are is were instead of was. So this is why we say his brother and sister were surprised instead of was surprised. Alright, let's look at how to change some verb into past tense. So for some verb, we add ed at the end, but remember, it's only some verbs we do that, not all the verbs. We can simply change it to past tense by adding ed. So verb like crawled, walked, laughed, watched, we can change it to past tense by adding ed. And if the verb end with e, and sometimes we can just add d to form the past tense because we have e already. Alright, like smiled, danced, shared, liked, all these verbs, and with e, you can simply add d. But remember, it's not always true. For example, the verb make, it also ends with e, but we cannot add d, right? To change it into past tense, the past tense of make is made. So there are some rules to follow, but all these rules cannot be applied to everything. So I'm sorry, we have to remember which verbs very specifically on how they are changed to past tense. And for some verb, when they end with y, then you change y to I and add ed. Just like cried, change y to ied. Study, you change y to ied. But there are some exceptions, like for example, played is also end with y, but we don't change y to I before we add ed. The reason is that if before y it is preceded by a vowel, it's preceded by a, then we don't change y to I, we simply just add ed. Another example is that, like the verb enjoy, it ends with y, but before y it's o, it is a vowel. So enjoyed, we don't change y to ied. We don't do this, we just add ed. And for some verb, if they are very short, they have a short vowel sound, Okay, then you double the last letter before you add ed, just like hug is a short vowel sound. And you add G before you add ed, double the G. Chat is a short vowel sound. You double the T before you add ed. So this is the key structures for chapter 1. When I was 4 years old, comma, I walked for the first time. We use past tense was and walked to talk about the past incident. We use when to connect two simple sentences together and make sure we put a comma if we're putting when in the front. But if you put when here, then we can take away the comma. And I was not scared. If the present tense is or am, then we replace it with was in past tense. But if the present tense is are, then we replace it with were in past tense. Like my parents are surprised if we're talking about present tense, but my parents were surprised if we're using past tense. Thank you for watching this video.